Coming up, Boris Johnson says after a weekend of anti-racism protests across the country, the government says those responsible for thuggery will be prosecuted.
ITV Lunchtime News with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good afternoon. The Prime Minister has said anti-racism demonstrations that took place over the weekend have been subverted by thuggery. Thousands attended protests across the country which started peacefully but ended with some demonstrators clashing with police. A historic statue of a slave trader was forcibly removed in Bristol, while a memorial to wartime Prime Minister Winston Churchill was graffitied in London. The government says those responsible will be prosecuted. The Home Secretary will make a statement later this afternoon. Our political reporter Shihab Khan has the latest. In Bristol, where you saw that statue of a slave trader being pulled down by demonstrators, police say they are investigating those behind its removal. But while the city's mayor has said he cannot condone the damage, he added he felt no loss as it was toppled by protesters yesterday. In Minneapolis, where George Floyd died 2 weeks ago, the local council pledged to dismantle the police force there and start over again. Returning here, what is it like to be a black British mother in modern-day society? Well, motherhood in the UK can be a harder experience for black women, with stark statistics showing the adversity they face. Well, author and blogger Candice Braithwaite has written and spoken extensively about what it's like to be a black British mother. Well, in other news, from today, anyone arriving into the UK by plane, ferry or train will have to self-isolate for 14 days. The government says it's to help prevent a second wave of coronavirus, but critics argue it is ineffective and unworkable. Under the new rules, passengers need to provide the very concerned about the plans and are taking part in a legal challenge against the government over the new restrictions. Well, for a full guide on how the new quarantine measures will affect you, just head over to our website. That's itv.com/news. And in the last hour, we've been hearing about more potential job losses, this time at oil giant BP. The company has announced it is cutting 10,000 jobs worldwide. ITV News understands 2,000 of those are thought to be here in the UK. Our correspondent John Ray is with me this lunchtime. John, what more can you tell us about this?
Nothing potential about this, I'm afraid. Just to reiterate the point you made this morning by the Chief Executive, Bernard Looney, in a web chat since then, but clearly BP is having to look in weeks and months.
John, uncertain and worrying time for so many. Thank you. US prosecutors have formally requested Prince Andrew speak to them about his former friendship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The Duke of York has always insisted he never witnessed or suspected any wrongdoing. The boss of Heathrow Airport is warning that 25,000 jobs could be lost because of the coronavirus crisis. And finally, it is easy to feel like all of the news we hear about coronavirus is bad, but there was a glimmer of hope from the other side of the world as New Zealand declared itself virus-free. The country's leader, Jacinda Ardern, said she did a little dance when she heard there were no cases of coronavirus. She wasn't the only one celebrating. Sally Biddulph reports. Some very good news for New Zealand then. That is all from the lunchtime team for now. Mary will be back with the ITV Evening News at 6:30. The news where you are follows the national weather. But for now, from everyone here, bye-bye and take care. Again, now the main stories in London. The man who was shot and killed on Friday in Hackney has been named by police as Oluwame Owa Ademi, also known as Samson. And that is all from us for now. I will be back here at 6. Until then, enjoy your afternoon. Bye-bye. Tonight, the mayor condemns violence against the police. Good evening. For the second weekend in a row, thousands of Londoners marched through the streets demanding to be heard their message that Black Lives Matter. For the majority, the protests were peaceful, but today both the government and the mayor condemned violence by small numbers against the Metropolitan Police that left 35 officers with injuries. Statues were damaged too, with graffiti painted on Winston Churchill's memorial, as our correspondent Simon Harris reports. All right, let's talk to two Londoners now with separate campaigns that support mental health in black communities against the backdrop of George Floyd's killing and the response to it. I am joined by a former... Well, let's bring you some breaking news now. And in the last half an hour, police have confirmed that two women who were found dead in Wembley yesterday were related. Now, at this afternoon's daily press conference, the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, confirmed that no new deaths were recorded in London hospitals yesterday. It is the first time since the early days of the pandemic that 0 deaths have been recorded in the capital over a 24-hour period. ITV News has discovered that not all passengers arriving from abroad into London airports are aware they must now self-isolate for 14 days. The government's new rules come into force today. Anyone failing to comply could be fined up to £1,000. But, as Martin Stew discovered at Heathrow, not every passenger flying in knows the drill once they land. And for a full guide on how the new quarantine measures will affect you, head to our website. That's itv.com/London. Well, BP has announced it will cut 10,000 jobs because of the coronavirus pandemic, including from its London headquarters. Dental surgeries across the capital opened their doors this morning and welcomed their first patients for 3 months. It's the latest industry given the green light to start up again by the government as part of lockdown easing measures. But many practices say they weren't given enough warning and can't open because of concerns over PPE and social distancing. Those that have are facing huge challenges to treat their patients, as Ria Chatterjee reports. When the sporting calendar was brought to a halt back in March, both men's and women's fixtures in all sports were suspended indefinitely. But as lockdown measures are eased and competitions look at different ways to return, there are concerns women's sports will be left lagging behind men's. Antoine Allen has been speaking to footballers and netballers, coming to terms with the premature end of their seasons. Well, it's not just women's football and netball that have been affected. Women's cricket and rugby too have had major competitions cancelled. Joining me now to talk about the potential consequences for the future of women's sport is former The main headlines in London this evening, and London Mayor Sadiq Khan. Weather now on a very different start to June after the sunshine and warmth we had last month. Here's Sally. And finally, mudlarkers along the Thames estuary are used to finding all sorts of weird and wonderful objects washed up on the banks of the river. But since the coronavirus pandemic began, even the treasures usually found along the shoreline have changed. Sally's been out with mudlarker Lara Malem to find out more. You need a permit and your wellies. That is it for now. We are back with the latest after ITV News at 10. Coming up, Mary with the ITV Evening News. But from me and the rest of the London team, bye-bye.